you think it's going to be easy for them to get rid of that habit if everyone around them drinks? Probably not, right? Not that they all drink, but not everyone is able to understand, like this third code here, why they might reach for a substance of some sort. Okay. And I would say he or she hits this on the head pretty well, that whether it's a lack of love or a desire to not experience pain, people reach for substances for a variety of reasons. Here's a quote, I'll read this out to you. When we started to go there, I'd say we were 9 or 10 years old. We used to watch the movies every Sunday night. When we first saw the Indians getting killed, we were traumatized by that. How could they do that, not knowing even that this is a movie and this is just a show? So you can imagine a small child watching people that look like them get killed might not recognize that that's it's a fiction, like it's a fake story, right? It's a movie. They might actually think that that's real. So we would cheer for the Indians because those were our people. Well, I don't know how many years later it would be, maybe 3 or 4 years later, when the Indians and the white guys were fighting, we were cheering for the white guys. So, for this individual, this person's experience, clearly whatever they were being taught in their school on a regular basis made them shift their understanding of who they were and who the good guy and bad guy is or was. Which is pretty disturbing. Like, imagine you leave your school experience hating, who you are, which I think many people do, but it's a story for another day. If you're constantly given a message that your culture, your people, your way of life is terrible, that doesn't remove the fact of who you are. So if you're Indigenous and you're told for several years from a young age that Indigenous people are terrible, yeah, you can believe that all you want as an Indigenous person, but that doesn't change the fact that you're Indigenous. So you're not quite, as many people would express the sentiment, you're not quite white, but you're also not quite Indigenous either. You're stuck in between two different cultures. Right? And these are challenges created by historical globalization. Because I would argue there are many cultures that have a similar experience where they're not quite one or the other. For those of you who might have migrated here when you were young, or your families, you experienced a different culture at home, it might be a very similar experience that you're not quite one or the other, because maybe there's a disconnect between you and your parents, but you're not quite a part of the culture that exists here. Some of us might experience that in other ways, where your parents are maybe significantly older than you, you're the youngest sibling, and so your experience of everyday life differs very greatly from how your parents experienced growing up. For those of you who have those conversations with their parents. This first point is to address the fact that at some point in history, due to the Indian Act, the way the government was regulating Indian education or Indigenous education, there wasn't a choice for families. Your children had to go to a school. If they didn't go to a school, you were deemed negligent. That might still exist today in some form. I'm sure if it was discovered that a parent was negligent to their duties to their children, taking care of them, ensuring that they're safe, the child protection services might come and take the child away. And so that was some people's experience historically, that if they didn't send their kids to a residential school, maybe that child was forcibly taken and put into the school anyways. In 1969, that begins to change. At some point, the government of Canada delivered a statement of reconciliation. Do you understand what this word means? You know what it means to reconcile something?
Confess.
Not quite confess, although that might be part of it. To admit, what does it mean to reconcile? Like, let's say you and your friend get into an argument, it's friends off, right? Before you are friends on again, you reconcile. What does that mean? To some extent, forgive, yeah. Come to an agreement, right? You make amends, right? You bring some peace back into the relationship. That might include confessing that, hey, you know, I did something wrong. It might include apologies as well. And maybe an agreement that you won't do this thing again. Do you not have notes? Okay. Why do you think it's important for Indigenous people to hear this? Because some people might say, well, the government shouldn't apologize. It's happened in the past. Nobody alive today played a role. Why do you think it might be important for someone to hear an apology or an acknowledgement that something happened? Any guesses? Okay, so maybe we can have some sort of assurance that it won't happen again. To acknowledge any grudges, yeah, for sure, right? Why else? Like, how many of you have had someone apologize to you? Right? You know, how did that feel hearing the apology? It's like, damn, you care. Okay. Which is good to know, right? Anything else? Any other feelings that come up when someone apologizes to you? And I mean like in a legitimate manner, not like you know, you smack someone like, I'm sorry, but you got in my way anyways, right? Sorry about that. Sorry you got in my way, right? I mean like a genuine apology.
Relief.
You feel relief? They thought about what they did. That's important as well, right? So, like if you've ever had someone give you a genuine apology, it is very relieving. It does feel like they care. It does feel like, you know, they thought about what they did. And if they don't continue doing the same thing in the future, you might think that, well, they actually genuinely cared enough and thought about it enough to make a change. And you know, hopefully that's what we're aiming for, right? Here's a quote. I guess this was given by the Canadian government. As a country, we are burdened by past actions that resulted in weakening the identity of Aboriginal peoples, suppressing their languages and cultures, and outlawing spiritual practices. And my question would be, you know, what is our responsibility now? And that's kind of what this course aims towards. You know, if how many of you have apologized to someone for something you did? Okay. You know, and then what did that entail then? Like, what did you have to do with that apology? If you're willing to share. For myself, many apologies in my recent past. You know, I had to acknowledge that maybe I spoke without thinking and that maybe spoke carelessly. And so for myself, working on not doing that as much, thinking about what I'm about to say. I'll go first. What's up?
I don't have that. I only have one.
It's just yours. It's missing it, right? Everyone else has this, right?
Mine's missing.
Yeah, everyone's shaking their head.
That one page.
Oh, you're missing your one page.
That one page.
Learning to be accountable for actions.
Learning to be accountable for your actions, right? Like, which is very good. You know, again, relating back to my own experience, I can just say, hey, you know what, like, you're being irrational. Like, yeah, I spoke hastily, but you're being emotional. At the end of the day, like, what helps me become a better person? Being accountable. I should have done better. I should have considered what that would have meant to you before I said it. For me, there's a lot of verbal stuff. Go ahead. Just walk around the back. What does this slide talk about? So, in more recent history, the government, Indigenous peoples, various members of the community. You know, they got together to come up with some actual solutions. Yeah, I think the Pope actually came to Canada and made some apologies over the last 12 months. I don't know if anyone heard about that. The Pope was in Canada for a while. I don't know exactly what his apology was. I'd have to find like a document for that, but I won't get any further into that. I don't know what this number is anymore, but does anyone know when the last residential school closed? 1996, which is a great year. Grade 10s. How come? Because I was born. That's correct. Okay.
Please excuse the interruption. Can I have senior girl volleyball players please excused from class? Also girls, just make sure you make a pit stop in the bathroom before you load your bus. Go Chargers!
Good luck. Make us proud. Don't lose.
At least win a set.
Yeah, at least win one set. Maybe a game. If you're feeling like it. Yeah, so the last residential school, we got, we'll go for a little bit longer. I'll leave some stuff for Monday as well. Last residential school closed in 1996. I don't know how bad the schools were in the 80s and 90s. Like the 1880s and 1890s, they could have been terrible. So I don't know how many survivors are left.